Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to show you how to use the Viking floor lift to mobilize your patients earlier and often. Every patient handling situation is different because every patient is different, whether it's size, weight, morphology, or condition. Please consider those factors and always reference your facility policy for patient handling procedures. Now I'm going to review the basic functions of the Viking family of lifts. This is a Viking XL, and it's important to note that the Viking weight capacity comes in 440, 550, and 660 pounds. If you're not sure what your product weight capacity is, refer to the product label located on the side of the mast. It's also important to note that we need to plug in the lift when it is not in use. Plugging in the lift will keep the battery healthy and charged. And you can always note the battery charge capabilities by looking down here, which will show you where the battery charge is and if it needs to be plugged in and charged. Next, we're going to talk about the emergency stop button. The emergency stop button is this red button right here. This will disconnect the battery from charging and stop the lift from working. It's important to know if that's pushed in. To activate the emergency stop button, you would go ahead and press the button in, and then the lift will not work and the battery is not charging. We then rotate a quarter of a turn clockwise and pull it back out, and the lift will then reset and be activated again. Next, we're going to talk about the hand control. Our hand control is a basic hand control that has 4 up and down buttons. The double buttons go a standard speed and will raise your patient at that standard speed. The single buttons will go ahead and just do it a little bit slower if your patient is a little bit hesitant. We also have the base. We can widen and narrow the base based on this, which gets us around obstacles. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that now. Closing the base and opening the base. Now we're going to talk about the emergency lowering. This red dial located on the actuator is a dial that if you run out of battery or you need to lower your patient back down to the surface, you can simply twist this and it will lower them back down to a surface safely and effectively. Next, we're going to take a look at the brakes. The brakes are located on the rear casters. They're located right here. To engage the brakes, we go ahead and step down on the brake. To disengage the brake, we go ahead and just lift up. It's important to note that you don't need to utilize the brakes on a Viking lift unless you're lifting a patient up off the floor. We want the lift to center itself to the patient instead of the patient centered to the lift. It's important to note that the Viking XL has a different sling bar. The Viking XL has a 4-point connection sling bar, which offers extra comfort to our larger patients, offering 2 connection points for the head and 2 connection points for the legs. Now we're going to go ahead and show you how to transfer a patient from bed to chair using a seated sling. This can be used on a Gulvo, the Viking, and the overhead lifts. This yellow stripe on the back means it's a medium, but it also is a nice indicator to where I need to line up behind the patient right along the spine so I can get that nice and lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and I fold the sling in half. I'm going to go ahead and put it behind the patient, and then I'm just going to take the folded half and move it around the patient so it's nice and lined up. Again, taking that line and making sure it's right down her spine. Now, because we can transfer the patient in a seated position, I'm going to ask her to sit forward just a little bit for me, and I'm going to tuck it just to her tailbone and get that there. So I'm going to go ahead and ask her to sit back, and then we're going to take our leg straps. I'm going to roll that leg strap underneath, and then I'm going to tuck it here. I'm going to reach in there and grab that sling so it's all the way through and her leg's secure in there. Now I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and take the other leg, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it underneath. Again, same fashion, and pull it through so it doesn't shear on the patient's skin. Once we get those legs in place, I'm going to go ahead and take the straps of the legs, crisscross them, because that's what we do for a seated transfer, and put them there. I'm going to go ahead and grab my sling bar. One of the nice things about Hill-Rom Leco products is that the sling bars are universal, so the same sling bar is on the Viking and the Gulvo and the overhead patient lifts, allowing for same application. I'm going to go ahead and bring the sling bar over here. I'm going to go ahead and attach the head here. I'm going to attach the head here. And then I'm going to do the same for the legs, attaching here and here. It's important to note when you attach the sling straps on the sling bar that you always want to make sure that they're seated here and nice and safe, and we don't want them here or here. We go ahead and grab the hand control. Explain to our patient what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to go ahead and get you moved over to the chair. Raising them up. And again, it's important to work with the equipment together. So we're going to use the bed, make sure it's at a comfortable height, and then make sure that we just clear that surface. And then we're going to go ahead and bring her over to the chair. Get her seated in a nice safe position using the straps on the back of the sling. I'm going to pull back a little bit and get her seated in there nice and neat so she can have a nice, comfortable seat. Lowering her down, getting her in that chair. Once we get her to that position, I'm going to go ahead and get the sling bar down low enough to about chin height so we can take off the sling loops. Go ahead and remove those. And then we're going to go ahead and remove the sling from the patient. So I'm just going to go ahead and uncrisscross, doing the reverse action that I did when I put the sling on. I'm going to go ahead and wrap those underneath those legs and pull out. And I'm going to do the same activity on this side, wrapping underneath the legs to avoid shear and friction, and just wrap that around. And then I'm going to ask her to sit forward a little bit. We can go ahead and take the sling off the patient.